France will always be relevant. Some civilizations, like China or Russia, go through repeated cycles of boom and bust. Others, like Japan or Iran, hold on to regional significance century after century after century. France falls in the second category for a few reasons. First, it's situated on the far end of the northern European plain, nestled against the Alps and the Pyrenees Mountains for protection. That means it has defensibility and a wealth of natural resources similar to Argentina or the United States. Economically, it's fit to compete. The French education system, its tourism industry, and talent immigration are strong, and they might just have the best foreign diplomats on the planet. These preconditions ensure that France is always a significant geopolitical actor. But in the late 2020s, France's neighbors are wobbling. Germany's export-led economy faces significant energy insecurity. The UK's public services are horrifically underfunded. And Italy is drowning in debt. The last time such a setup occurred, Napoleon went on a 2-decade run of dominance. Will France squander this once-in-a-century opportunity? Internal conflict, rising public debt, and a lack of compelling leadership stand in the way. Let's break down the prize to be won. France boasts the world's highest percentage of electricity generated by nuclear power, at 70%. They have 56 operational reactors, churning out 144 gigawatts of carbon-free power to its citizens. They've done this through scaling a standardized design for pressurized water reactors. And this standardization has a ton of benefits. It lowers construction costs, simplifies regulatory processes, and creates a flourishing labor market where operators become highly familiar with a single design but can work at multiple locations. It also gives France the lowest carbon intensity of any developed nation, as nuclear has a tiny carbon footprint. While Germany spent the last 2 decades shutting down its nuclear plants and burning more coal, French President Emmanuel Macron has announced plans for 6 more reactors by 2050, with the potential for up to 14. French households pay some of the lowest rates for electricity in Europe, and less than half the cost in Germany. This isn't just good news for French citizens watching TV and running an air conditioner. It makes France a potential economic superpower. Energy-intensive sectors like chemicals, steel, and manufacturing are eyeing France for cheaper energy costs while simultaneously satisfying their green initiatives. The world's second-largest steelmaker is investing $1.7 billion into its Dunkirk plant to reduce carbon emissions, a move partly incentivized by France's cheap, low-carbon electricity. But it's not just about keeping the lights on in factories. France's low electricity costs are also turning it into a digital powerhouse. Data centers consume enormous amounts of electricity, and France's nuclear bet could be essential for one of the fastest-growing industries on Earth. If you're sick of hearing about AI, you're not alone. It's a cool technology with the potential to replace a few jobs, but it's still got a long way to go before it completely transforms the economy. France could be one of the first to experience that change. The constraint on the growth of this sector isn't talented engineers, it's not GPUs, and it's not capital, it's energy.
We would probably build out bigger clusters than we currently can if we could get the energy to do it.
Large data centers consume enormous amounts of electricity. The biggest cloud providers plan their build-outs through the lens of access to cheap electricity and have public plans to build clusters that will consume an entire gigawatt on their own. Training large AI models requires enormous computing power. GPT-3's training phase consumed over 1,280 megawatt hours, enough to power a typical American home for 120 years. And that's just scratching the surface. As multiple teams pursue the arrival of advanced superintelligence, energy requirements will skyrocket. Some projections suggest we'll need clusters consuming gigawatts of power. I've even seen estimations of over 100 gigawatts for a single training run in the early 2030s. This would make France's nuclear-powered grid become a strategic asset of potentially world-altering significance. The country's stable, low-carbon, and crucially, low-cost electricity makes it an ideal location for the massive data centers that will be required to train and run advanced AI systems. And if the funding was there, they could scale their nuclear capacity as fast as any country on the planet. And this is particularly critical in the context of the European Union. As other European countries struggle with energy security, France could become the AI powerhouse of the continent. Just as it exports electricity to its neighbors, France could also become a net exporter of AI computing power. The French government seems to be awakening to this potential, committing over $1.5 billion to AI research and development. But the stakes here are greater than just economics. This could go as far as national security. The nation that develops ASI first could gain an insurmountable advantage in economics, technology, and potentially military capabilities. After the US and China, France is likely the best situated to seize the moment. In addition to its electricity, France also boasts the only other advanced AI lab not situated in the two world powers. Mistral is a French AI startup recently valued at $6.2 billion in its most recent round of fundraising. And while it theoretically has the capacity to go out and compete globally, it might not have to. It could simply win in Europe under the protection of EU regulation. There are two pillars of power in the European Union, France and Germany. As a founding member and the EU's second largest economy, France wields significant influence in Brussels. But with Germany facing economic headwinds and the UK out of the picture post-Brexit, France sees an opportunity to step into the driver's seat of European politics. President Macron has been pushing an ambitious vision of European strategic autonomy to reshape the EU into a geopolitical heavyweight that can stand toe-to-toe with the US and China. Here's how France aims to leverage its EU position. On matters of defense and security, France is pushing for a common EU defense policy and even a European army. France is the EU's premier military power and the only nuclear-armed state after Brexit. If successful, this would not only boost France's defense industry, but also increase its political clout within the bloc. It's also advocating for more integrated fiscal policies and has been a key driver behind initiatives like the $750 billion recovery fund after COVID. But it's also setting itself up to be in the driver's seat of AI in Europe. France has been at the forefront of the EU effort to regulate big tech. The Digital Markets Act and Digital Services Act bear a distinctly French imprint. France's advocacy for a European cloud initiative and push for digital taxation at the EU level further demonstrate its influence in shaping the bloc's digital strategy. Apple is currently being investigated for infringement of the DMA over its relationship with app developers who do business on the iOS operating system, and could be fined up to 10% of its global revenue. Google, Microsoft, and Facebook have all come under similar scrutiny. France's EU ambitions do face challenges. The northern frugal states often oppose French-led initiatives for greater EU spending and integration, and its eastern members worry about ceding too much sovereignty to Brussels. But if France can navigate these objections, its EU leverage could position it as an economic and regulatory power in a multipolar world. In past videos, we've talked about the demographic cliffs facing the majority of the developed world. Germany, Japan, China, Russia, and the UK are all aging quickly. This leads to enormous strain on public services and challenges to growth. France is not immune to these headwinds. Their birth rates are below replacement levels, but not as bad as the countries that I just mentioned. However, French public services are some of the most generous on the planet, leading to substantial strain on their balance sheet. France's public debt stands at a towering 112% of GDP, well above the Eurozone average of 95%. France has consistently run budget deficits since the 1970s, with successive leaders reluctant to implement unpopular spending cuts or significant tax hikes. The 2008 financial crisis and COVID-19 only exacerbated the issue. President Macron has set the ambitious goal of cutting the deficit to just 3% of GDP by 2027. But it won't be easy. Spending cuts will be tough, given France's strong attachment to its social services model. They'll also need to unlock labor market flexibility, The recent pension reform, raising the retirement age from 62 to 64, is a step in the right direction, but probably not enough. Like Argentina, France could benefit from privatizing state-owned companies to raise funds. But France will also need to develop growth-driving policy, not just cutting costs. The European Central Bank's monetary policy will also play a crucial role. The low interest rate environment of the past decade helped keep debt servicing costs manageable. But rising rates put all high-debt countries under stress. France won't default. Most of its debt is long-term and euro-denominated, reducing its refinancing and currency risks. But successful debt reduction would free up resources for productive investments and provide fiscal space to respond to future crises. It will require political courage, economic ingenuity, and unity to navigate this challenge successfully. But it's not clear that France has a leader waiting in the wings who can make that happen. Emmanuel Macron is severely disliked. His centrist party's strategy for the recent elections was to keep him out of the public eye. The left's coalition has the most seats. But it's a hodgepodge of communists, Greens, and socialists, and Jean Mélenchon is not likable. The right-leaning National Rally has a highly engaged minority, but like Trump in the US, has a huge faction that will literally never vote or work with them. It's sharply divided, but there are two big ideas where the French broadly agree. 76% say that things in France are going in the wrong direction. 65% say things in the EU are going in the wrong direction. That's a bad sign for moderate centrism. This polarization means that it will be hard for the French to agree on which direction will lead them to salvation. But I'd be shocked if the majority can agree to cut spending and fix the debt. I'm not predicting a Frexit, but I do think it's the biggest tail risk for France's future. The French labor market is another major challenge. It boasts some of the highest productivity rates in the world, yet struggles with persistent unemployment. Job protections in France are among the strongest in the developed world. Their permanent contracts make employees notoriously difficult to terminate, leading to a two-tier labor market: those with secure jobs and those stuck in precarious short-term contracts. This system, while providing security for some, has contributed to France's stubbornly high unemployment rate. It also hurts the competitiveness of French companies, who don't want to hire aggressively to grow at the risk of hiring the wrong person and it basically being impossible for them to let that person go. Collective bargaining agreements cover a staggering 98% of French workers, compared to the EU average of just 54%. While this ensures broad worker protections, it also stifles flexibility and makes it harder for businesses to adapt to changing economic conditions. Recent reforms have attempted to address these issues. Macron's 2017 labor reforms eased dismissal procedures and decentralized collective bargaining. There's also the 2023 pension reform we mentioned earlier. The only way workers might relent is if France realizes the most idealized future of artificial intelligence. And if that causes white-collar jobs to collapse, it will be incumbent on French fashion, luxury, and other artisan industries to employ the population. While the French path to success in 2030 is far from guaranteed, the problems that I just outlined pale in comparison to those of France's peers. But I can't end the video here. It would be reductive for me to just kind of hand wave at AI and technology and not acknowledge the other enormous opportunities that France has the opportunity to seize. It starts with their ability to influence global energy markets. France's diplomatic relationships in Africa and the Middle East go back to the era of colonialism. In North Africa, Algeria remains a key energy partner. In 2022, Algeria supplied about 11% of France's natural gas imports. This relationship is set to deepen, with Algerian state energy company Sonatrach and French's Engie signing a deal to increase gas exports to France. Moving south, France's influence in the Sahel region is pivotal. Operation Barkhane, France's anti-insurgent campaign in the region, involved over 5,000 troops at its peak. While the operation officially ended in 2022, French forces remain active in the region, protecting not just against terrorism, but also securing France's access to uranium in Niger, critical for its nuclear energy program. In Mozambique, French energy giant Total is developing a $20 billion liquefied natural gas project, one of Africa's largest. In Uganda and Tanzania, the company is spearheading the East African crude oil pipeline, a $3.5 billion project set to be the world's longest heated pipeline. In the Middle East, France has partnered with the United Arab Emirates. France maintains a permanent military base in Abu Dhabi, and in 2021, the UAE signed a $19 billion deal to buy 80 Rafale fighter jets from the French. In 2018, Saudi Arabia and France signed $18 billion worth of deals across sectors including energy, water, and defense. French company EDF is in talks to build 6 nuclear reactors in the kingdom, a project worth up to $60 billion. This network of relationships will be crucial in the decade ahead. France must navigate between maintaining its influence, addressing accusations of neocolonialism, and adapting to a changing global order. In Europe, financial services dominance is up for grabs after Brexit. Paris is emerging as the successor to London's long-held status as Europe's financial capital. Within 5 years of the UK leaving the EU, Paris has attracted thousands of new jobs in the financial sector directly linked to Brexit, second only to Dublin. JP Morgan Chase acquired a new trading floor in Paris, Bank of America has made Paris its new European trading headquarters, and Goldman Sachs also significantly increased their local workforce. The European Banking Authority moved from London to Paris in 2019, further cementing the city's status as a key regulatory center. This move brings with it not just jobs, but increased influence over EU financial regulation. And this adds another key industry to France's diverse economy. In addition to nuclear, France is a world leader in multiple industries. It is ranked number 1 globally for international tourist arrivals. France's luxury goods industry is unparalleled globally, combining centuries-old craftsmanship with modern marketing prowess. LVMH, Kering, and Hermes are all global leaders in the space. LVMH reported revenue of $79 billion in 2022, up 23% from the previous year. France's aerospace industry is also a cornerstone of its economy. In 2022, Airbus delivered 661 commercial aircraft, surpassing its American rival Boeing to make it the world's largest. The sector's importance extends to Safran, Thales, and Dassault, forming a robust ecosystem of innovation. In the future, you can expect French companies to be leaders in green aviation, space exploration, and urban air mobility. The French defense industry is also among the world's most advanced, a critical exporter, and a key pillar of the country's strategic autonomy. Rafale fighter jet has been a particular success story, with recent export wins in Greece, Croatia, and the landmark deal with the UAE I mentioned earlier. Some of these industries will inevitably face headwinds in the future, but the core point is that the French economy is diverse enough to overcome it. And even if Brexit did happen, these international businesses would be better poised to digest that change than other countries in the EU. Thank you to the commenters who asked for this video. Let me know in the comments who you want to see next, and go check out our video on Germany.